You might be familiar with the movie Clouds, which tells the story of an exceptional young man, Sobiech, who at 17 years old passed away from complications relating to cancer. I first came across Zach's story about 10 years ago in an episode of the YouTube show My Last Days, which presented us Zach and his family as they faced the implications and the consequences of his terminal diagnosis. And one of the things that Zach said in My Last Days, I don't know that I'll ever forget.
I think every teenager out there feels invincible, and they'll never admit it. And it's not the kind of invincible like Superman. It's the kind of invincible like, I'll see you in 5 months. I thought I was invincible. I was ready for college pretty much, and I was planning out way ahead. And yeah, turns out sometimes you can't do that.
Zach's words really stuck with me because in so many ways, that was my story. I was the kind of person who saw myself as invincible. I didn't get to a funeral till I was 19. When I was 20, I went to the funeral of somebody I knew, somebody young like me, which kind of had a way of bringing death to the forefront. And the reality is, death is one of those things that all of us have to face. Not just death of people that we know and people that we love, but our own death. None of us gets out of this world alive. And the church has some things to say to us about death and dying, but also about hope. If you pay attention to the readings at Mass, one of the things you'll notice is that every November, the readings take a bit of a dark turn. We start hearing a lot about the last things: death, judgment, heaven, and hell. Now, I did videos about a year ago talking about heaven and hell, how heaven is better than you think it is, and how hell is not a sign that God doesn't love us, but the opposite, in fact. That we have the freedom to choose hell is actually a sign that God does love us and doesn't force us to do anything, not even go to heaven. But in order to get to judgment and then ultimately heaven or hell, we all need to die. And there's a lot of different ways to understand death. We can talk about being brain dead or being clinically dead. But in a religious or in a Catholic context, what we mean when we say you've died is that this is the moment that your body and soul separate. UCAT says, in death, body and soul are separated. The body decays while the soul goes to meet God and waits to be reunited with its risen body on the last day. What does this mean? It means that we believe that to be human means to be body and soul. You're not just a soul with a body or a body with a soul. Both of those make up what it means to be human. And even though the body is mortal and it will die at some point, for all of us it will die, your soul never does. The Catechism goes on to say, death is the end of man's earthly pilgrimage, of the time of grace and mercy which God offers him so as to work out his earthly life in keeping with the divine plan and to decide his ultimate destiny. When we die, we come to a moment of what we call particular judgment, where our soul is essentially laid bare face to face with God. And St. John of the Cross says, at the end of our life, we are judged by our love. Did we love God? Did we love our neighbor? And ultimately is the answer to those questions how we've chosen to live, how we've chosen to use the time we have here that decides whether eternally we're going to go to heaven or not. Now, obviously, it's not just about us earning our way into heaven. It's only possible because Jesus died for us, and the good that we do is only possible because of our willingness to cooperate with the grace of God. But what we do matters. And this is why in Catholic tradition we have a devotion called Memento Mori, which literally means remember death. And it invites us to remember the fact that we are not, in fact, invincible. The Catechism goes on to say, our lives are measured by time, in the course of which we change, grow old, and as with all living beings on earth, death seems like the normal end of life. That aspect of death lends urgency to our lives. Remembering our mortality helps us realize we have only a limited time in which to bring our lives to fulfillment. We aren't invincible. We aren't immortal. And you don't need a wake-up call like Zach or my friend had 20 years ago to teach you that. We know that we are all going to die. And the gift of Memento Mori is not a morbid fascination with death or with dying, but a reminder of what our final destination is. And hopefully, motivation to make the most of the gift of this present day, because we don't know if we have a week or a month or a year or 10 years or 1,000 years. We do know we have today. And so today is the day to learn what it means to love God more than we did yesterday. So today is the day to do the next right thing and to love our neighbor more than we did yesterday. And hopefully, as we do this, to live in joyful hope of the God whose promises we can trust, the God who has loved us so much that He showed us the way. He showed us how to get to heaven.